Welcome back, everyone. It's south of the border. It's I, your reluctant gringo, and we've got another episode. It is Wednesday. It is May 14th. We got a lot of stuff going on. I almost swore there. Try not to swear too early in the video because then I get flagged. But we got a lot of stuff. But welcome back. Pleasure to have everybody back, and anyone who's going to be joining us later on. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And if you didn't know, yes, I am an American expat living below the Rio Grande. Yes, I live in Mexico. And I've been here for a few years, but I still very interested in politics, so I always like to comment on things going on in the United States. Now, there's a lot going on today. There's a lot of domestic news, there's a lot of international news, and I got a lot of problems with what's going on. There's some things that's going to go on tomorrow, which we have to talk about, because the 14th Amendment hangs in the balance tomorrow. Believe it or not, the 14th Amendment from the Civil War, you know, the one that kind of helped free the slaves. But believe it or not, yes, that is in the balance tomorrow. That is actually getting heard. But we're going to get into that in a second. Well, not in a second. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Our opening story, as you can see from the thumbnail, one big, beautiful bill. And the Ways and Means Committee, the Finance Committee, all that, they've released a draft online of the Republican Tax Bill 2025, and it's about 400 pages long as is. The thing's going to end up being about 1,000 pages long. Now, I read through probably 390 pages of it. I didn't get to the last 6. I'm sorry. And there's a few points I want to bring up and talk about because there's some things that might upset people, might make people cheer. I'm not going to really tell you which way to feel. I'm going to sort of explain it to you the way that I understand it. I will tell you this. The one thing I don't like about these big, giant bills, right, whether it's the Affordable Care Act or whether it's the Inflation Reduction Act or this tax bill being made by the Republicans, when bills get this big, it's almost impossible for people to, read them. I mean, literally, we've heard this over time and time and time again, that representatives themselves, they don't even read the bill. They have somebody else read the bill. It's on their staff and says, yeah, it's okay, or yeah, it's not. And that's really not the way things should work. I would prefer, like, if you're going to say, hey, I don't want taxes on tips, to make that like not a thing, make that, make tips not taxable, just write one simple bill that says, one simple bill, tips on wages are not taxable. Boom. It's like 3 sentences. It doesn't really need to be anything fancy. It doesn't even need to be that much legalese, right? I think there's this transparency issue that we have in government. And when you read these bills, and listen, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a trained lawyer. I mean, I have some academic credentials within politics, international relations, things like that, policy making. But when you read these things, I mean, normal everyday people read these things and it's like, what the hell is this jargon? And they're created by lawyers. They're really not created by the representatives, the people you see, the talking heads, the people you vote for senator, vote for representative. They're not actually sitting down and writing these things, right? Yes, a lot of them are lawyers and they probably do understand the language, but they're not writing these things. But then people like you and I, when we sit down and read these things and say, what just got passed or what are they thinking about passing? It's almost as if they do it on purpose to make people, normal everyday Americans, just say this and you know what? I don't even want to bother. It's too much of a hassle to sit there and figure it out. And we're gonna get, like I said, I've got it up here, and I'm gonna read some things for you. But like I said, it's about 396 pages, exactly 396 pages long as is, and it hasn't even gone to markup. This is just a House bill. It still needs to go to the Senate, where I don't think it's going to pass. As is, it's not going to pass. I know that for a fact. As is, and it's not going to pass. There's too many senators representing too many states with rural areas that are going to be negatively impacted by this bill, and some of the things it does with Medicare and Medicaid. That are just not going to vote for it. I know Senator Josh Hawley's been very outspoken about it. Tom Tillis has been outspoken about it, about not supporting a lot of the provisions and saying, listen, this thing's going to change. It's definitely a moving target. Lisa Murkowski, Senator Murkowski, Susan Collins from Maine, Murkowski from Alaska, definitely 2 other senators on the Republican side that are just not really on board with the bill with the way that it is. But again, it hasn't even made it out of committee, but they have released a lot of it, and there are other committees that are working on parts of this bill as well that we still haven't seen. So we're going to get into some of it. I'm not going to get into all of it, but some of it, because I think it's really important to actually figure out like what's going on here, and who's and what's going on with our taxes, because this bill is going to be long lasting. It's going to be 11 years, 12 years, 13 years. It could be 20 years, so some of this stuff doesn't sunset. So let us, if you would indulge me, let me bring this up. Okay, here we go. Now, if you wanted to read the bill yourself, you just go to house.gov, right? And it's there within all the bills. You have to search for it because it's not yet a passed bill or a bill that's made it to the full House for a vote. This bill's probably going to go to reconciliation, which is a different process than just voting on one house and then sending it to the other. So it's a different process, it's a longer process, but it's an easier process for the party that's in the majority. Right. So if you're in the majority, it's a lot easier to get your things done. It's just one of those tricks and tips and rule changes that they made years and years and years ago to sort of get around general dissent. Do I agree with reconciliation? No. I think if the House is going to pass something, let them pass it. If the Senate's going to take it up and say, yes, we like it, no, we don't like it, let them vote on it, and let's just figure it out from there. I think simpler is better. I think things just get too convoluted with reconciliation. And of course, with reconciliation, there's a lot of backdoor dealing and a lot of backroom stuff going on. And again, I think sunlight is the best disinfectant for anything, especially in government. But here we go. This is page 32. Page should be 389 pages. But yeah. It goes on and on and on and on. Qualified overtime compensation. So they do address overtime compensation. There shall be allowed as a deduction an amount equal to the qualified overtime compensation received during the taxable year. Basically, they're making overtime, like if you get taxed on it, that's tax deductible. It's not that they're going to make overtime not taxable. It's going to be taxable in a month. It's going to make tax deductible. All right. Which is cool. Like I used to work a lot of overtime when I worked the hourly wage. Like when you're hourly and you work overtime and then you think you're like, oh man, I put in 10 hours overtime this week and you think you can get this huge check. Then you finally get your check. It's like, wow, the government took like half, if not more than half, 60%. It's sort of like, why did I work all the overtime? It wasn't even worth it. It wasn't worth the time that I didn't spend with my family or spend doing the things that I like, right? Really the benefit, the return on investment isn't really there. And so I just think it's a terrible, terrible situation to get taxed that much on overtime. But there you go. And then here we go. Any qualified tip, any amount received by an individual during a taxable year if such individual is a highly compensated employee of any employer for the calendar year in which the taxable year begins or receives earned income in excess of the dollar amount in effect under section. Basically, it's talking about tips, right? We're talking about tips. And so they're trying to eliminate the tax on tips, but first they're trying to define what a tip is and who can get these tips. That's probably a good idea because, what if big banks and executives start calling their bonuses tips? Are those now not tax deductible, not taxable? So they're really trying to define it, which I guess, okay, that's a good idea. But yes, so we do have the whole overtime. And that was a promise that Trump did make. He wanted to get rid of overtime get rid of taxes on overtime on tips, and that type of stuff. Additional tax relief for American families and work. No tax on tips. And what is a qualified tip? Okay. Tips received in the course of trade or business. In the case of qualified tips received by an individual during any taxable year. So again, they're trying to define what that is because if you don't define what a tip is, right? You think of the waitresses, they don't make really that much money. I mean, you go back to the old classic scene for the opening of Reservoir Dogs, here's the world's smallest violin playing just for the waitresses. But I mean, they don't make much money. Waitresses don't make a lot. They live off their tips and tips are taxable. And not only that, but a lot of times when you get a tip as a waitress or a waiter, I don't mean to make it gender. I don't mean to do that to anybody, but when you do that, a lot of times, and I have a son who works in the restaurant industry, you don't get to keep that tip right away, right? That's not yours. Like I remember when I was working as a waiter in high school, if I got a tip, it was mine, right? And I didn't really report it. I was a teenager, whatever, right? But now they have to be put in like this general compensation jar now. And at the end of the night, all the, gets divided up evenly and then you got to report it. But this is the money that they really need to live off of, right? So I think it's a good idea to define what a tip is, and then who really needs who really needs this type of relief. So I think that's a good part of the bill, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I've been reading it, I haven't seen anything nefarious or anything too tricky in it. But then again, it is a lot of legalese. And again, when you read through this bill, I swear to God, they make this on purpose. So normal, everyday Americans just don't want to read this stuff to see what's in it, right? And again, I guess how many people have the time really, again, to read 400 pages of tax legislation? Believe me, I tried, and I got through most of it. It's head breaking. It really is head breaking. I think I'm a smart individual, but I'm not going to lie to you and say here I understood every single word that came down this thing, because there's also references to other legislation that you have to go now look up. Like, oh, this is going to amend tax code legislation from 1989, subsection 5, and I'm like, what the hell, right? So there's a lot of room for funny business. Okay, so no tax on tips. What they're trying to define what a qualified tip is such term shall not include any amount received by any individual unless the such amount is paid voluntarily without any consequence in the event of non-payment, is not the subject of negotiation, and is determined by the payer. The trade or business in the course of which the individual receives such amount is not specified service, trade, or business. Again, they're trying to make it so, again, if you're a high-ranking CEO, you can't just give out bonuses to people and call them tips and then call them not taxable. I used to get every now and again, we get small bonuses when I worked for Apple, right? And yeah, I wish those were not taxable, but you'd lose at least half. Like when I got a bonus, like if they gave me, hey, you know what, we did really well with sales this quarter, here's $1,000 bonus. Well, really, I'm only getting $500. They take at least half. So, but again, I think that's what they're trying to protect against, that type of nefarious way. So far, I think that this part of the tax bill, I'm okay with because it seems like it's aimed at helping working class people. All right. Again, the no tax or making overtime, taxes and overtime may be deductible later on when you do your taxes. Fine. That's fine. I can deal with that. That's great. All right. So some of the things that really get a little weird, and I'm going to have to go far down into the bill. So, So this has to do with Medicaid and Medicare and some and basically federal health insurance or federal benefits. Again, I'm not going to tell you how I think you should feel about this, because I think it's a very divisive issue. I know how I feel about it right now, but I'm not going to tell you how to feel about it until I read it to you and then get into a couple of the stories that sort of involve this. This provision, Section 112-103 of the Republican tax bill, the big, beautiful bill, as Trump would call it, disallowing premium tax credit during periods of Medicaid ineligibility due to alien status. Basically, no federal funding can go to anybody who's an illegal alien for Medicaid, Medicare, things like that. So when we hear about the Congressional Budget Office saying millions of Americans or millions of people, they never say Americans, millions of people will lose their health care. They're talking about a lot of illegal aliens who are on Medicaid, because there's a lot of states that allow that, including California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, things like that. So this provision would eliminate their eligibility for this federal benefit. Now, some of you out there are saying, yeah, that's great, good, because they're not citizens. And some of you out there be like, well, wait a minute. The other argument is that they're just going to walk into the hospital anyways, and they're going to cost us money anyways, because hospitals aren't going to refuse health care to anyone. And so we back to that old argument, right? So it really, but it is part of the Republican platform, and it is part of President Trump's tough stance on illegal immigration. So I kind of figured that this would be in the bill, but it's very straight. It's got its own section and everything. It even refers to the Affordable Care Act, so it's altering that, which did allow for illegal immigration or legal immigrants to receive Medicare or Medicaid. Now, states do that on their own as well. Again, an example would be California. They passed a bill where they're willing to pay for the health care expenses of illegal immigrants. That's fine. That's going to change right now because, again, the reason why this is no longer a Republican is good old Gavin Newsom. Let me pull up my news here. Good old Gavin Newsom. Oh, there he is now walking back as governor of California. He was all in on making sure that they were a sanctuary state. They offered all the benefits. Now he's going to walk back that health care for eligible undocumented immigrants. Why? Because it's costing the state too much money. It's a simple. Well, there's two reasons. One, it's costing the state too much money. And two, he's trying to pivot to the middle because he's running for president. Now, if you didn't know that already, no, he hasn't come out and said, I'm officially declaring my candidacy. That's not how it works anymore. He's positioning himself, rehabbing his image. After the fires, I mean, his image is basically in the toilet. I mean, that's just the way he handled that, and sort of got a lot of crap for that. So Governor Gavin Newsom's 2026 revised budget proposal. So the governor is making his own budget proposal for the state of California. That's what they do. Reneges on his signature policy to provide free health care coverage to all low-income undocumented immigrants as costs exceed expectations and the state anticipates challenging economic times ahead. Well, I mean, when you're a sanctuary state and you say, I'm going to accept everybody, well, everybody's going to come, especially if it's a state like California. Look, if you don't live in California, you've never been to California, we can talk about the state of the cities in San Francisco and San Diego and Los Angeles and the homeless and all that stuff. Listen, it's a warm state. It's a beautiful state. You get out into the country. I love it. One of my favorite places to go in the whole world is San Diego. I worked in San Francisco. I've been to LA, but I mean, it's beautiful. It's warm. So yes, it's a very enticing state for illegal or undocumented immigrants to go to. If they end up homeless, hey, you know what? Sleeping on the street in San Diego in the warm weather is a lot better than sleeping on the street in Chicago. Let's just face it, okay? But they also get a lot of benefits there because California allowed to themselves become a sanctuary state. But now it's going to cost them so much money, they're not sure how they're going to pay for it. So Newsom's office said that the government spending plan, which will be released late Wednesday morning, which it hasn't been released yet, at least I have not seen it yet, calls for requiring all undocumented adults to pay $100 monthly premiums to receive Medi-Cal coverage and for blocking all new adult applications to the program as of January 1st. So now what you thought was going to be free, you now have to come up with $100 a month. Now, again, these are low-income people. These are people who probably came across the border illegally with nothing but the clothes on their back. And again, I'm not here to argue against or give you or tell you illegal immigration bad, illegal, whatever. That's not the point. The point is that the state of California made a decision to do this, and everybody at the time was screaming up and down outside of California saying this is wrong, this is bad, it's going to hurt the economy. But here we are, the chickens have come home to roost. It was inevitable, folks. It was inevitable that at some point in time, the ship was going to take on too much water and start to sink, and now they're trying to bail out. So now that not only are they going to charge people $100 that are already on the program, as of January 1st of next year, they're going to cut it and say, no more, we can't add anymore, because the governor's office said the changes will save a combined $5.4 billion in 29. Basically, they're almost $10 billion. I think the last report I saw, the projection was they're almost negative $10 billion for all this healthcare stuff. So when we go back to this big, beautiful bill, right, and we call it the Republican bill, is it really the Republican bill? Because now even the standard bearer of the Democratic Party is signing on to this kind of agreement. Again, it's something to be aware of, but this is what's in this bill. This is what they're attempting to pass. Now, limiting Medicare coverage of certain individuals, again. What it's trying to do is basically say, hey, the party's over. During the pandemic era, there was a lot of allotment inside the government to allow people who said, I just don't want to work and I'll just go on the government Medicare. Well, no, if you're an able-bodied person now, you're going to have to verify, or if you're not an able-bodied person and you don't have children, things like that, or a pre-existing condition, there's going to be a verification procedures that they're going to put in place. And if you're basically an able-bodied person and you can go to work and you can get a job, you're going to have to do that. You're not going to be able to get your Medicare. Again, that would be part of the CBO's estimate of 8.6 million people in the country not having health care anymore. It's because it's basically saying, the bill saying, listen, you can work, you can afford it, you don't need to be taking taxpayer money that doesn't need to be allocated to you. The free ride is over. Okay? As well as it's going to tie into the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, which was passed by Clinton. And so you're going to have to enroll in benefits and go through again a verification process. So you're going to have to be so to get your Medicare, you're going to have to be a citizen or national of the United States. an alien who is lawfully admitted for permanent residence under the Immigration and Nationality Act, an alien who's a citizen or national of the Republic of Cuba. So, hey, if you're from Cuba, you're good. The beneficiary of an approved petition under section, okay. So beneficiary of an approved petitioner under section, so again, another immigration issue. You need to be physically present in the United States. Yeah, that's a thing, people. People coming over here, they get these benefits and they said, you know what? My money will last longer in a foreign country. And so I have a residency, but I don't have a real residency. I just have a mailing address. And they get their checks and they get them sent and they get them deposited. That's a real thing. Clever. And they live in a foreign country, and the money is the benefits they get and the money they get. It lasts longer. It's clever. I'll give them that. Hey, I'm in Mexico. My money lasts longer than the United States. Let me tell you something. So I get it. So, okay. You must be physically present in the United States. Let's see here. What else? An individual who lawfully resides in the United States in accordance with the Compact of Free Association. All right. So you actually have to reside in the United States. You can't reside you can't have a residency, a permanent residency somewhere else. And so that all needs to be verified. And you need to do it within 6 months. You have to have a Social Security number. You're going to have a Social Security number. That's one other thing. So Social Security numbers just became even more important. They're really looking to cut a lot from Medicaid. That, again, you hear Republicans say, we're not going to cut Medicaid. But what they mean is they're not going to cut Medicaid for the people who need it or earned it or are citizens of the country. When you hear Democrats say the Republicans are cutting Medicaid, they are, but they're cutting it for people who are not meeting certain requirements. Again, it's a word game. It's a political game. Do I think there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse? And we've heard that term a lot within Medicaid and Social Security. Sure, there is. Do we have to start addressing that? Yeah, it's costing us millions. Okay. Do we have to make some hard choices? Some of them we like, some of them we're not going to like. Yes. But that's what's in this bill. Now, another thing that's in this bill is aimed at illegal immigration and aimed at immigrants, period. It's called the imposition of a tax, the remittance transfer tax. All right. This was interesting to me because, all right, how do I explain? If you don't know what a remittance transfer is, basically, all right, imagine you've got a gentleman who is an illegal immigrant or just an immigrant in general. Maybe he's a legal immigrant. He's in the United States. He gets a job. He's left his family behind and say they live in Juarez, Mexico. He's living in a little room somewhere and he's working 2 jobs, putting together money. And most of that money he's transferring back to Mexico to his family so they can live and they can have a good life. Well, that's a remittance transfer. What that does is over time, the more of that you have, the more US dollars you have leaving the country and being turned into a foreign currency, which is what happens. So you send US dollars to Mexico, it gets transferred into pesos. Well, what happens is over time, and we've seen this over time over the last 10, 15 years especially, it has a negative effect on the value of the dollar and a positive effect on the value of whatever currency it's turning itself into. So it does, in a way, hurt the United States economy because also money is being sent out of the economy, not being spent in the U.S. economy, right? You figure people who make money in the U.S. will spend money in the U.S. primarily, mostly for the majority of their time. Well, with more and more of this going on, especially with the increase in immigration that we saw during the Biden administration, the increase in immigration we saw during the later years, during the pandemic years of the Trump administration, you saw more and more U.S. dollars leaving the United States and being converted into foreign currency, whether it's yen, whether it's pesos or whatever, right? So what this is going to do is that every time someone sends money outside the United States to be transferred or converted into a foreign currency, basically anybody who does a remittance transfer will have to pay a 5% penalty. So if they send $100, they have to pay $5. It doesn't sound that bad. It'll add up. I get it. It is a protective measure. It is a protective measure. Is it a measure that harms people in the long run? I don't know if it really terribly harms people in the long run. I do have a little bit of an issue with, like, it's your money. I mean, why can't you do with it what you want? But then again, the U.S. government's been telling you what to do with your money for decades now. So I have mixed feelings about this because I do believe in personal freedom. And once you earn the money, you should be able to do with it what you want. But I do understand that there has been sustainable damage to the value of the dollar in recent years because of this. And you want to protect the dollar. Once the US dollar is no longer the currency of preference in the world, that's the end of the United States, right? As far as economic powerhouse. And we've seen some challenges to that with Brazil, with China, what they call the BRIC countries, trying to create their own, Russia including that, trying to create their own currency to compete. The euro trying to become a currency to compete. And we want the U.S. dollar to continue. If you're an American, you want the U.S. dollar to continue to be the currency of preference. And so this is an effort to sort of curb that, to slow that down, to say, hey, we recognize what's going on. We don't want to be too harsh about it, but we do have to institute some of this going on. And so that was one of the things that really struck me. And it was sort of towards the end, if you can see page 327 of this bill. So there's a lot going on here. Now, again, those are just three or four of the things that really caught my eye as reading through this. There is one other thing in here that really, I think, is what's going to hang up on Republicans and where Republicans are going to be divided, and where you're going to have the Senate break from the House and say, we were at an impasse, okay? And I mentioned earlier, Senators Josh Hawley, Senator Tom Tillis, Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. There is a part of this bill where it talks about Medicaid and the money being given to states. So what does that mean? When Medicaid money is, here, let me actually do this. There's creative accounting going on, right? When money is given from the federal government to states, how they account for that, how they use that, really determines the amount, like their needs and things like that. And they're looking to put a cap on the amount of federal income or federal money that goes towards Medicaid to states under certain circumstances. Now, those circumstances, as they are spelled out in this bill, would actually harm key demographics in the Republican Party. It would actually take away money, and as the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, and a lot of the senators have mentioned, it will actually harm rural communities. It will actually take money out of rural communities who don't have hospitals or enough hospitals as they are. So if you're in rural Kansas, rural Maine, rural, Mississippi, and there's one or two hospitals that you can get to, and imagine one of those hospitals not being available anymore because you don't have the funding in conjunction with the federal government through Medicaid and Medicare to keep those hospitals open. Well, that's a big deal, right? I think that's something that these senators are not going to tolerate. I know Josh Hawley has already came out and said, listen, I will not support that whatsoever. It can't be in the bill. Otherwise, I can't support the bill. So there's going to have to be something to be done about that. So there are cuts, there are limitations, there are regulations. So partly what the Republicans are saying is untrue, but partly what the Democrats are saying is untrue. You really can't trust either party with what they're saying. They're sort of talking out of both sides of their mouth, which is what politicians do. We know that. But when you read through the bill, and I'm not saying you have to go read through the bill. I'm not saying you have to. I did it already for you. And I'll continue to read through it in the next few episodes. We'll have more and more that come out of this bill and more and more that come out as soon as they release more pages of it. But there are cuts. There are definite cuts to a lot of different things that, again, they're trying to cut $5.5 trillion over the next 10, 11 years. That's a very difficult thing to do if you're not going to cut social benefits, because social benefits take the most amount of money. So do I see this bill as it is passing? Absolutely not. This bill as it is will not pass. Will not pass the Senate, that's for sure. It may pass the House. Speaker Johnson might be able to get it through the House, but it's not going to get through the Senate as is. It damages rural communities in too many Republican states under too many Republican senators that are not willing to make those sacrifices. Again, there's a slim majority in the Senate, and already you have 4 senators saying no. again, that's enough to kill any bill in the Senate. So it's going to have to come out. It's going to have to come back to the House. They're going to have to go through reconciliation. They're going to have to change a bunch of different little things in there. But in the end, the bill does seem to have some really good things in it. Again, I go back to the promises that Trump made about no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, or at least making overtime taxable or tax deductible. Those taxes tax deductible. I think those are really good things for working people who are just everyday average blue collar workers who are just trying to make ends meet and maybe get a little extra in a paycheck every now and again. But again, there are some things there that I think the bill is also half aimed at illegal immigration. And I think we have to expect that. I think we have to look at that and go, okay, well, that's something that we really expected from this administration, from the Republicans, is that there would be a serious gutting of any type of funding, any type of sanctuary type policies for illegal immigrants. So it's going to tighten things up. Does it make things better or worse? We'll see. I think it makes things worse. Again, I'm not a proponent of illegal immigration, nor am I a proponent of handouts to anybody. But what I do know is that before we were trying to figure this question out, hospitals and healthcare and all that stuff was expensive either way because hospitals don't turn people away just because they're an illegal immigrant. You walk in with a broken leg, if you're an illegal immigrant, they're going to treat you. You're not going to pay anything, so who's going to pay? The taxpayers, right? So there's got to be, again, we've got to figure that out. Unless we're all going to be really selfish. I mean, I'm not at the point yet. I mean, I'm an old grumpy man. I'll tell you that right now. But I'm not at the point yet where I'm going to tell hospitals to turn away illegal immigrants when they're sick or they're hurt. I mean, I'm still a Christian, So there's going to be something that has to break. I don't know what it is that's going to break, but something's going to break. So the bill as is, I think if you're worried about the bill as is, you don't have to be because it's not going to pass. There's no way. I think what you have to be worried about is how far they're going to go with certain things or certain taxes or certain caps. That's the key. What they cap. What they say, okay, California, this is how much money we give you. Well, we're going to cap it this far down. And how much that hurts regular Californians. And again, how much it hurts regular Texans, how much it hurts regular people all around the country as they start to do that. I think that's really where the rubber is going to meet the road. Again, this isn't fancy, sexy stuff, news to talk about, but it's probably the most important stuff that we can talk about because it really does affect our everyday lives, what these fundings and everything do for people. And how it will affect you. So there it is, the big, beautiful bill so far as it is in the House. It's expected to be 1,000 pages long. I will continue to read everything that comes out, and we'll see what happens. Again, as I started out, I very much dislike big bills like this because I think it really, I think transparency in government, participation in government, or just awareness of what government is doing is harmed very, very much when you have giant bills like these with all sorts of stuff crammed into them, such a legal stuff crammed into it that it just makes it hard for just everyday Joe Schmo like you and me to read through it and go, what is the government doing today?